Hey, good afternoon, everybody. We are the Afternoon Gridiron coming to you right post-practice press conference via the Kansas City Chiefs. Steve Walls here from the W Show 100.1 FM, Darren Smith, A10 WHB of the ship. And we're here, Afternoon Gridiron. Darren, man, Assistant Coaches Day. A lot of times when you think about just talking to the assistant coaches, you just want to hear what they have to say, because a lot of what Andy Reid feeds to them, then they divvy out to the players. And your thoughts on just speaking to the assistant coaches?
Yeah, obviously, as I was telling you during the Zoom stuff, we don't get a chance to talk to the assistants as much. I think we're only, according to, I believe, Eric Minman one time when he was running back coach, I think we only get the assistants 3 times throughout the year. And so, one time during training camp, and I think we'll get them one time, I think, throughout the regular season, maybe twice. And I think the other time we may get them during the off season as well, during the mini camps and stuff like that. But of course, the good thing is that talking to them, they are right there on the front lines because they're the position coaches, so they actually work more with them versus Eric Bieniemy, Spagnuolo, and Andy Reid as the coordinators and the head coach. So so the fact that they actually are in the trenches and they're able to scout and to be able to look at the players more closely than the coordinators can means a lot. So so hopefully people have their questions kind of steered and kind of guided towards those individual coaches with their players, and if so, you get a lot more. You get a lot more insight as you and I both got as it relates to the running back, which we'll get to later on in the show. But yeah, no, it's real important because you get a lot of the nuggets that you won't get from Andy or the coordinators.
So and it's evaluation time.
Yeah.
With these coordinators. So of course their time is limited, but we did get 5 assistant coaches today. We got the assistant head coach, Dave Tobe, Tom Melvin, the tight ends coach, Andy Heck, which is the offensive line coach, Brandon Daly, defensive line, and Dylan McCullough, the running backs coach.
Yeah.
And so first starting off with Dave Tobe, man, what did you see from him? I know he talked a little bit about, Tommy Townsend, he's the new punter that's replacing Dustin Colquitt. And he also talked about the fact that they can't resemble a kickoff coverage within practice.
Yeah, so, I actually got there written down that they can't resemble in practice the pregame feel as it relates to going full speed. Look, obviously a couple of other things that Tobe was talking about that they have to make adjustments in practice because there are no preseason games. So it's hard for him to be able to scout players that they normally would in the games because of course you got real live action versus what you're able to do again in just practice. Now one of the things that I think that he was really excited about was the fact that even though they have the same amount of time as it relates to what they're able to go and coach and stuff like that, he does feel that the ramp up period that they got has been critically good for the special teams because it allowed them to do a little bit more teaching and what they're looking for, and then of course going out and trying to execute it on the practice. Those were some of the biggest takeaways that I took from his from Dave Tobe when he initially addressed the media today.
One of the things that I commend Dave Tobe and what he said was that when there was a question that was asked about just the first year veteran compared to the veteran guys and not having the preseason games and so forth, and he said that the guys that are proven will have a leg up. We all understand that, and I'm like, well, dang, he really said that, but it makes a lot of sense because the guys that have been here or with the team in the past few years, been in the trenches with those guys, they already know what they can do. So the guys that are trying to make the squad, I mean, it's going to be a tough time, especially with no preseason game.
Yeah, and it's funny because to that point, Steve, we always talked about how it was going to be much more easier for the Chiefs because of the amount of starters and players that they had returning to the team versus other teams who would have to make adjustments and make moves and stuff like that, because most of your players are returning, and a lot of them, decided not to opt out. The turnover ratio and the language and stuff, you don't have to really worry about too much with that. Again, now, he did say that he has a lot of comfort because he has seven starters returning on special teams himself. So that made it makes it much more comfortable for him. Where okay, mine is trying to do some plug and play with the rookies, who have to start out kind of on the special team type deal, and then of course players that are trying to make the team. Again, a lot of that counts for the comfortability of Dave Toub and his team.
And I see Brian Herbert's joining us again today. We appreciate you, Brian, watching us, and everyone else who watches us daily. He talked about the return game.
Yeah,
and the thing about Dave Toub is that he never lets you know exactly what he's thinking. So if he's
well,
thinking,
hold on, to be honest, a lot of these coaches don't, especially
right. But I'm talking about just in the with return within the return game aspect.
Yeah.
Like last year, we were asking, is it going to be Tyreek? Is it going to be McCole?
Yeah,
Who's going to be doing punt return? And he said, well, we don't really know if it's going to be Tyreek. We don't really know if it's going to be McCole. We don't know. This year, it's more of a. He said, I heard him say Byron Pringle. I heard him say Dieter. I heard him say Demarcus Robinson. So. Yep. But the thing about that is, if these guys want to make the team, I heard that Byron Pringle is looking like going to be the guy in the return game. However, I think he's out with the hamstring or groin injury right now, so it's wide open because McCole is going to be more offense right now because he's a threat.
Oh yeah, no, he's definitely a threat again, and with the amount of receivers that they have, obviously, and then of course with Sammy being nicked up a little bit, it does give Robinson, even though Robinson has started before, and does give Pringle as well as McCole more opportunities on the offensive side of the ball to make snaps. That is actually where that was something that Dave Toub said, that he wasn't really concerned about the depth of his return game, because he said, because he named off Robinson, Pringle, and Dieter, and they're all behind McCole. But then, he also said, if they need a big play, they can always pull Tyreek, on the punt return or kickoff return if necessary. So that being the case, that gives a wide receiver at least another opportunity to make the squad, if because they're so deep at wide receiver right now that that is something that they can also rely on the return game. And then before we get out of here on this one, I do want to make sure that he did have high praise on Willie Gay, the rookie. Said that he's a 4-phase guy and he plays extremely fast, and said that there's not really a whole lot that he had that he's had to coach him up on. He said one of the things that they like is that they like guys that play fast, because you can make mistakes, but as long as you do it fast, and practice fast, play fast, they can work on the mental stuff, and they can work on any mistakes that he might have.
And we also had a chance to talk to tight ends coach Tom Melvin.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's not really a lot of depth. I mean, there is depth with a tight end group, but who's going to get most of the touches. That's going to be Travis Kelce. I mean, Travis is a blocker, and he can also run and catch. And that's one of the things that he said that kind of stood out to me, was that, when he was asked what makes being a tight end different right now
in this NFL,
back in the past, it was they can run and catch now. They're more a part of the offense. They're not just having their hand in the dirt and blocking for the quarterback.
Yeah, no. I got that written down. His comment about blocking tight ends, they have to be able to block and catch in today's offense. And in Kansas City, they have to be able to do both. I mean, he's already said that if you can't do both here in Kansas City, you're not going to be able to make the team. And that was kind of, I think, along the line of Nick Keiser, because a lot of people have been asking, like, hey, you've been, he's been getting a lot of reps with Travis Kelce on the first team, but again, it's just a 12 personnel set, so different packages. Yeah, if you're gonna have a 2 tight ends, obviously somebody else besides Travis is going to be able to have to be on there. But the thing is that he said that he's rotating a lot of the the tight ends that are healthy and that are able to practice. He's rotating them in with Travis Kelce on those 12 personnel sets.
Yeah, and it's a good problem to have, especially when you have a guy like Travis Kelce, a guy who's been healthy, has had four consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. So
But it's also good, and we can't ignore it. He has had some concussion issues throughout his career.
of
So in
course.
case he goes down, I mean, you do want to have, as we had in the Blake Bell, someone that could come in for reps or for spells if need be, if necessary.
And then Coach Heck. We talked to Coach Andy Heck, the offensive line coach. What'd you hear from him, man? Because, I mean, what I heard was that Brett Beach does a great job bringing in guys and quality players. The numbers, and when you look at offensive line from last year, when you had 3 guys that went down in one game and they were scratching their head like, well, is Travis Kelce going to have to move over, or they're going to have to bring somebody from the defensive side of the ball to play, offensive line? So what'd you see from him?
What I saw from him was someone who was confident in the players that they have. He said the thing that I took notes of was that building versatility along the line is the key to their team success. So basically, if a guard has to play tackle or vice versa, they're able to do it. And he said that he likes having the depth at the tackle position. I think he highlighted Barton, Sanat, and a few others that are guys that are flexible who can play multiple positions. So again, that's what I took most out of his time when addressing the media was giving his players high praise on being able to play in multiple positions. He did single out that he was a big fan of Andrew at the guard and replacing, of course they lost a couple of starters to the COVID stuff and being able to opt out. And so that's what I took away from Coach Heck was that he's very thankful of the versatility of his linemen.
And he also talked about bringing in quality guys that love to play quality football. And Kelechi Simile was one of those guys that has come over to the Chiefs from the Jets this year. And he said he loves to play the game. He's very infectious, good for the room.
Yeah, no, and the thing is, when you got players like that, the offensive line, and this is something that we don't really talk about, but the cohesiveness of the offensive line, and to an extent the D line, but really the offensive line, they're really a collective group where they are always generally together. They hang out, a lot. Well, minus this time period on and off the field where they do things together to form a collective unit. So the fact that he's able to kind of assimilate with the rest of the players coming in from New York spells dividends for Kansas City. And well, look, and obviously Kansas City last year had a lot of work to do, with a lot of injuries on the offensive line throughout the season. But I think coming back and, minus the concussion right now that Eric Fisher's having right now, I am still liking how this offensive line is going to look this season.
And since we're sticking with the offense, Dylan McCullough, running backs coach.
Love that guy.
Talk to us. Yeah, of course. He talked about a lot of things, man. One being Clyde Edwards-Helaire, just the whole running back core group. And so when you think about what he said, as far as Clyde Edwards-Helaire, that lets you know that Clyde is going to be a starter.
Oh, most definitely. And I think we talked about it either yesterday or before, but man, look, I'm not saying he's going to be rookie of the year, but he's going to be in a situation where he's going to be looking real good. And the more I heard Dylan talk and sing his praises and show what he was, and this is what I said, look, winning a national championship buys you some goodwill because you played at the highest level and you won a championship. And so that's going to be able to transfer right over here to Kansas City where to me, he's not going to need a whole lot of wiggle room for improvement. Pat's not going to put him in a bad situation. Dylan isn't, Andy isn't, Eric. And so all he has to do is just learn the playbook, learn his blocking assignments. And look, man, I've never been more excited to see an offense play than I am this season. Again,
Why is that?
Well, because again, I harken back to 2018. You and I were there on the field in the fourth quarter when the Chiefs played the Rams, and that was a video type game, and that was just, to me, that was like the best game that I had ever seen, even in a losing situation, because both teams with that offense, man. I mean, it was superior. That
Market
was just yeah, market, yeah, yeah. That's a conversation, yeah. But that's but just knowing how high powered that offense was, and you really, I mean, you really had well, you had Hill, you had Kelsey, you had Hunt. I can't think of who our second wide receiver was at the time, but he's not. I think he ended up going to Miami. Wilson, I think it was. I can't. Yeah, and so,
Albert
but
was Albert
Albert
was
Wilson. But then you look at the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. You look. I know for a fact if we had Kareem Hunt in that game, we beat New England and we have a rematch against the Rams in the Super Bowl. But knowing how explosive that offense was in, and knowing that the weapons that we actually have now, that's better than what it was in 2018. Yeah, that's dude. Again, I think that I don't expect him to be in every down back, but I do. well, and Pat had 5 turnovers too,
yeah.
Byron. So so it was a few things that happened in that game, but the fact that they were able to go back and forth at will in 60 minutes, 105 points, tell you something about that offense. Says something about defense too, but defense was better. But this time around, though, Steve, I mean, look at it, man. You know, you know that this running back is gonna create plays, but again, if I'm a defense or I'm a defense coordinator, how am I going to guard or how am I going to play against Kansas City? That's the biggest question mark because you double Tyreek or you try to roll a player over, you try to do something with Travis. Patrick can still beat you with the second wide receiver option with somebody in the backfield. I'm just saying that's something that he's able to do. I mean, and that's just I'm just at a loss for words right now because that's how exciting this offense is going to be.
But not only when you look at the depth chart and you see Clyde Edwards-Helaire with running with the first stringers, then I mean it's pretty open after that. However, they do have Darwin Thompson who's coming in. We talked about yesterday. He talked to the media. He has a lot more confidence than he had last year. First of all, not being able to see over the offensive line, just coming in with his eyes wide open. And I had a chance to ask Dealing about just Darwin and him having more confidence. He said definitely he's coming in with a lot more confidence because he doesn't look to Dealing and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that," or
Yeah.
I didn't know." Now he knows and he's correcting himself, which is a positive.
Well, and that's what we talked about yesterday when we talked to him. That learning curve and that experience from being able to, make the leap from year one to year two. Obviously, and that was a question that I kind of posed to dealing about was that learning curve for him versus someone like a Clyde, like Clyde, because Clyde's coming in and he's getting all those first reps, so he's getting kind of crammed in with everything, but the experience that he's getting by running with that first team will build the confidence that come day one. Okay, once he gets that first hit, that first real hit from the opposing team, is only going to make him better. Now, if you're someone like like Darwin, yeah, I mean it helps because again you've had opportunities but you didn't really make the most of it. Now, whether it was because confidence in yourself, and it's fine. Look, to admit that you might have been a little afraid or whatever, of
Mhm.
the challenge could have been too big for you. But but look, you got a chance. Look, you played in the Super Bowl, you won. Now everything should be there. Confidence should be there. You should know the playbook like the back of your hand. So really, for someone like Darwin, there really isn't any excuse going further.
It's not, but just thinking about the running back, and I don't want to say that they're going to do running back by committee. A lot of people are saying, Clyde isn't an every down back, which I didn't think Kareem Hunt was, but he proved me wrong. When you look at Clyde Edwards-Helaire, then you have Darwin Thompson, but then Elijah McGuire has kind of leaped over as far as on the depth chart with Darrell Williams, and then you have DeAndre Washington, who's coming up on the rear end. So when you think about those four guys, those five guys, I mean, who out of that group would you say would be the first to go?
Ooh. Well, unless they're man. Um, well, I'm gonna say Daryl is fine. I'm gonna say Clyde is fine. The bottom three though, unless he's pulling the wool over our head, I'm gonna say Darwin is fine. So, give me the last two names again.
Elijah McGuire, he's came from San Francisco. Then of course Darrell Williams, and then DeAndre Washington from the Las Vegas Raiders.
Ooh, the first one you named.
Really?
Yeah.
Elijah McGuire. I agree with that. I agree with that. Even though he's third on the depth chart right now.
Yeah, I mean, now I'm just curious whether see the coaches aren't. That's the thing about us not being in practice where we can't see with our own eyes, and because you and I knew being in Pittsburgh that second fumble that Carlos Hyde had in the game against the Steelers, we knew in the first quarter he's not making his team. Like when the season, and so, but we saw that by seeing it, either seeing it in practice or seeing the games, and since we can't do either one right now, we're just going off of a hope and a prayer. So yeah, so that's the direction I'm going.
All right, and last but not least, we talked to Coach Daly. He, of course, Coach Daly is the defensive line coach, and so it was the question that was the first question out of the gate was, how can the defensive line get better by only going against a passing offense? Which I hadn't thought about it like that. Because when you think about just the defensive line, you want to be able to stop the run, because a lot of guys in the league, even though it's becoming a passing league, you still want to be able to stop the run. And of course, the Chiefs don't run the ball that often, but when they do, they don't run it as much as you would get in a like going up against Denver.
Not much as they did in 2018 is what you're saying.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
But it helps long drives, consecutive reps, conditioning. That's the biggest thing, is getting into conditioning right now.
Yeah, that's funny you say that. No, that I would agree with that, because again, it does build up, and they do get a lot of consecutive reps staying on the field. But that actually is a real good question that I hadn't really thought about, because you're going to, in week number 3, I believe it is, you're going to be week number 3, week number 4, no 3. I think you're going to be facing the Baltimore Ravens. They're going to be doing a lot more running than they are passing the ball, because of how their offensive line is stacked up, and then of course the type of players that they have. That's I don't have an answer for that one, because that's a real good question. That's a real good question. I mean, obviously, you're going to have to run the ball every now and then. I mean, and one, you're going to have to just keep the defense honest, and two, I mean, why you got a first round draft pick if he can't get you 6-7 yards on the ground from time to time? So that was something that I hadn't really thought a lot about that. And I'm actually sorry that I don't have a real better answer for you.
I mean, because you think about it, the Chiefs, it's no secret, they're a pass first offense. Mm-hmm. And so how are you making this defense better? Of course, the linebackers, of course, they understand and getting out in coverage and things like that, but just stopping the run, how with no preseason games, how are you developing the skill to do that?
That's a good question, because obviously when the weather gets a little inclement, come November, December, you're still going to be passing, but you're not going to be passing as much, you would think, depending on the weather. No, that's a question that we probably gonna have to pose to Andy tomorrow, because that's a real good question that I'm not gonna lie, I don't have an answer to, because that's a good point. And not to say that he really didn't have a good answer, because I think his answer that he gave was suffice. But that is a good point to bring up to Coach Reed tomorrow when we talk to him.
Now I'm curious to know that, and the reason I ask is because, is it something where, okay, we're going to do what we need to do, and then the defense needs to work on we can help the defense work on what they need to work on? Like, or from a defensive side, let's just say I'm Steve Spagnuolo and I'm going to Andy Reid. I'm saying, okay, well, give me 5 run plays so we can you're running up the middle or somewhere, in between one of the gaps, that way we can be able to learn to stop the run.
Yeah, now that I like it. I think that's probably what they would do, and I'm looking at what Brian said, which I would agree as well. We expect to play from a lead, but let's not forget we've been known to start off in the hole as well. So but that so that being the case, I can understand that. But again, every team that we play, is not going to be, a pass first team. I mean, again, when we play Baltimore, they're a run first team that just happens to be good at passing. Of course, Cam Newton, when we play New England, depending on who the starting quarterback is going to be, they can be more of a run heavy type team. So I got to relook at the schedule because again, I don't know if we're traveling or anything like that. So I got to relook at the schedule to give my assessment on that. But again, I could kind of see that Steve would do that. Hey Andy, give me X amount of running plays or whatever to keep our defense honest or whatever. That I could see them doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it only makes sense because if you're just doing Tyreek's getting the ball, Travis
right,
Cole's getting the ball, and then you're scoring, how is that making the? I mean, of course, it's making the defense work, but
you're also going to wear Patrick's arm out too, to an extent. I mean, he can't throw 90 times a game, so
hey. He's proved this wrong before.
Yeah, but not 90 times. Patrick is still human. He might be extra human, but he's still human.
We appreciate everybody that joined in and watched us. The Afternoon Gridiron with Steve Walls and Darren Smith. Tomorrow we'll have Andy Reid, and we hope to have Miko Hardman and a couple of other guys that'll be joining us on the post practice press conference. So until tomorrow, for Steve Walls and Darren Smith, we are out of here.